This is the Writers Podcast, a Writers After Dark radio production, bringing you the best in writing advice, news, trends, and interviews. Hosted by award-winning authors S.K. Anthony and Raymond Esposito.
Good evening and welcome to our Halloween special. SK, do you think that was more Dracula or more Count Chocula?
More Count Dracula, for sure. For sure.
I did love that cereal when I was a kid, as much as I absolutely love Halloween. Since the day we started podcasting, all those long 12, 14 episodes ago, I have been thinking about and looking forward to this episode.
You have. Why don't you? In case you haven't heard us before, this is Raymond Esposito.
And that's S.K. Anthony.
It is. So why don't you, Raymond, tell us that one little fact that you've been dying to tell everyone, because I've been hearing it every single Halloween since I've met you.
And it's important because it proves my case as a dark fiction writer. Halloween is the second largest holiday in the U.S.
Okay, say it one more time.
Halloween.
Because you have to wait until next year.
Well, there's more. I mean, you made me not talk about all the facts and figures, but if you took gift giving out of Christmas, the money we spend on decorations, costumes, and parties for Halloween would surpass what we spend on Christmas. And in case you didn't hear it, it's the second largest holiday. It's the second largest holiday in the U.S. And I believe part of that attraction is it's versatile. It has something for everyone.
You should see him nerding out and going. He's like a kid in a candy store, which, anyway. But you're right. It is the type of celebration that can be anything you wish. Something for the kids, a reason to party, a good night for a scare, or if you're a witch, the celebration of the new year.
And it's also the perfect night for that naughty nurse outfit, which I stand by what I said earlier in previous episode, that naughty nurse outfit should absolutely make its way into Valentine's. It's a hit. It'll be. I swear it'll be a hit. But
I wonder why you're not wearing a naughty nurse outfit right now.
I can't say I don't have the legs for it because I kind of do. I don't know. It's just not my thing. But I think other than the naughty nurse outfit, the thing that's universal to all forms of Halloween celebration is that feeling that we're intermingling with all those things that go bump in the night.
It's an evening when the veil between what is possible thins, and we consider the darkness with a more watchful eye.
So tonight, without further ado, we're going to explore the darkness, the root of our fears, and the possibility that evil is there waiting, right at the peripheral of our sanity. They delivered the mannequins in bubble wrap. From the main room, I begin to hear popping.
Look, speaking of darkness, I am not ashamed to admit that after I turn the lights off in the basement, I sprint up those stairs so fast because I don't want to give anything the chance to grab my ankle.
Well, SK, as a horror writer, I think in possibilities, not probabilities. So I believe your running is an excellent strategy. And the only thing that horrifies me is that you have to turn off the light before you go up the stairs. I would call an electrician and fix that problem.
You think if I get the electrician, he'd wear a naughty nurse outfit?
Well, if it's a dark basement, he should at least carry wooden stakes.
Look, I'm not ashamed, because even after childhood, most of us have had a time or two when we're afraid of the dark.
Yes, those moments, as you said, when we made that quick run up the stairs, or when we moved briskly past that darkened room. You know, early man had good reason to fear the dark. Of all the predators, humans have the worst night vision. And in the darkness, plenty of shit can go wrong.
But there's a difference between the fear of a predator's attack and being afraid of supernatural things.
And you know, after thousands of years, for all we've learned, we still believe in gods and we still believe in monsters.
So if these ideas and beliefs are so universal, then they must either have some truth or at least there's some attraction to believing in them, no?
Well, one explanation is the theory of the bicameral mind. The theory argues that the human mind was once divided into two parts. One part gave the instructions, the other listened and obeyed, much like a modern marriage.
As it should be. Today we're comfortable with the sound of our own voice in our head, and we understand the thoughts and memories that speak to us.
But what was that like before we had language? What strange sounds did our minds speak in? Was it at times comforting and at times frightening?
Yes, like screaming. But if we didn't know those voices were our own, then is it possible that both our gods and monsters simply came from the sounds of our own thoughts? Don't be scared of the monsters. Just look for them. Look to your left, to your right, under your bed, and in your closet. But never ever look up. She hates being seen. But science explains it all, right?
Well, science can explain many things, and we like to accept the conclusions because it's comforting to be rational, to know that the scurrying noise behind you has a completely normal explanation.
Okay, yeah, but even science doesn't claim to know everything. In fact, the very nature of scientific law is that it can change because these laws are just the observations of observable facts.
Correct. So for the supernatural, science is satisfied to say they have not yet found any evidence to support the possibility. But that simply means they don't know.
Yeah, and consider how much of the earth we have not yet visited.
We've explored less than 1% of our world below the surface.
And what that makes me wonder is who or what is blocking us from the rest. Are there worlds beneath ours? Are there caves and holes that lead to these dark places? Who are the guardians? Are they keeping us safe or are they protecting themselves from us? We might be the monsters after all.
It's very easy to say that there's no such thing as monsters. After all, the cynics argue we certainly would have run into a vampire, a werewolf, or a monster if they existed.
And as for all the possible creatures, we thought we had discovered them all, but even scientists agree there are likely millions more that are yet undiscovered.
And the ocean, only 5% of it has been explored, so who knows what swims in those dark, cold depths.
Consider this story and ask if you can explain it with absolute scientific certainty.
On a remote island off the coast of Scotland, 3 lighthouse keepers lived and worked. On December 26th, a supply ship arrived and found the island airily deserted.
From a diary found inside the abandoned lighthouse, they began to piece together a strange and still unsolved mystery.
2 of the 3 waterproof coats were missing. Dinner was left, half eaten on the table. The lighthouse log described a great and terrible storm.
The thought is that the 3 of them were swept out to sea during the storm, never to be seen or heard from again.
Possible. But if that were true, then why did the last journal entry state, "The storm has passed, the skies are calm, God is over all"?
And more mysterious is the fact that the powerful storm described in the log never happened. There were no storms reported in the area. In fact, the skies were calm all day.
So were they swept out to sea? Or did something yet unknown visit them on that faithful day?
There are things that want our souls, that are the demons from hell.
Perhaps, but did you know much of what we envision about hell and the things it spawns come from outside of the Bible? Our vision of hell comes from Dante, and our ideas of Satan and his demons come from John Milton.
But the church has certainly done much to create many of the superstitious fears we have. Perhaps the most famous wasn't exactly of their own doing.
It's the story of Friday the 13th, thought to be the unluckiest day of the year. The idea may have originated from the church's arrest of the Knights Templar on Friday, October 13th, 1307.
But even before then, and long after that, the church has had a healthy distaste for the number 13. The number was considered sacred by many pagan religions.
It's sacred because of its connection to so many things in the natural world. For example, We believe we have 12 months in the year, but if you divide the months by the 28-day moon cycle, there are actually 13. And if you count the total number of participants at the Last Supper, there are also 13, which is interesting considering the 13th tarot card is the card of death.
But the card meaning is resurrection, right?
Mm-hmm. So to indoctrinate pagans into Christianity, it was important for the church to reassign evil to their current practices. The practice goes well beyond just the number 13.
Like black hats, a favorite among peasant witches on Egyptian pharaohs, also became evil. And even today, black hats arrive in greater numbers in animal shelters, and they're adopted at lower rates.
And if you've ever wondered why 3 a.m. is considered the devil's hour, it's because that is the period of time when the canonical or prayer hours are absent from the church and evil has free reign upon the earth. I almost laughed when I saw my wife in the mirror creeping up to scare me. Then I heard her car pull into the driveway and remembered she wasn't home.
Among the evilest of humans, the church took a special interest in the witches, and they took particular affront to the practice of divination.
Because to communicate with the dead or with spirits was an invitation of evil to enter one's soul.
The most famous incident involving the evils of the Ouija board is the Roland Doe case.
According to the records, 13-year-old Roland attempted to contact his dead aunt using a Ouija board in 1949, after which it led to a series of supernatural events, including his levitation.
It was reported that the boy shied away from sacred objects and that strange markings appeared on his body.
Multiple Catholic priests performed over 30 exorcisms on the boy, after which he reportedly returned to a normal life.
This story may sound familiar as it is the basis for William Blatty's novel and screenplay, The Exorcist.
The Catholic Church has a long history of performing exorcisms. They have a belief that there are malevolent evil forces, demons, that can inhabit one's body.
And even up to 1973, the church still performed the rite of exorcism. The most disastrous case being that of Annalise Michael, who after 70 rituals ultimately died of what medical professionals believe was malnutrition and dehydration.
But since we've all seen the movies, we know that's exactly what happens when you're possessed by a demon.
Yeah, obviously, because the demon is taking it all. Anyway, but certainly the belief that there is evil, that it can invade and possess us, is simply reserved for superstition and religion, right? Except it's not.
Dr. Richard Gallagher is a board-certified psychiatrist and associate professor of clinical psychiatry at New York Medical College. In 2008, he diagnosed his patient, whom he calls Julia, as suffering from demonic possession.
Gallagher claimed that his patient, who had a long history with satanic groups, would go into a trance-like state as he and others performed religious prayers and invocations. She also spoke in foreign tongues and growled in strange voices.
Much like my co-host. Mostly psychologists argue that demonic possession is little more than schizophrenia. They say exorcism is unnecessary and has caused the death of many who simply have a mental disorder.
But we still know so little about the mind. Who's to say that there's any difference between schizophrenia and possession? Perhaps the first is just the way the devil hides his work.
I can't sleep, she whispered, crawling into bed with me. I woke up cold, clutching the dress that she was buried in.
Could there be a hell full of demons waiting to possess us?
Or do these evil and supernatural things come from beyond the veil, from a darker dimension that can, at times, open a door between our worlds?
Even science supports the idea of many worlds. In quantum physics, there comes a theory that all possible alternate histories and futures are real, places where everything that can exist does exist.
Is it possible that part of us knows about these worlds? Is every dark thing we can conjure in our minds based on another dimension's reality?
One puzzling artifact suggests that might be the case, the Voynich manuscript.
Written in the 1500s, professionals say it's clearly a language of sorts. It seems to contain, based on its illustrations, information on plants and astrology. but no one has been able to decipher it.
And most of the plant drawings are not identifiable as things of this earth, except for one, the wild pansy. That's a plant used in folklore by Cupid to create his love potion.
So is this manuscript an old world hoax, a lost language, or did something else visit our world and leave behind its notebook?
I can't move, breathe, speak or hear, and it's so dark all the time. If I knew it would be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead.
Are there evil spirits and strange hungry creatures, or is all the evil simply a reflection of our own dark souls?
The first recorded use of the term lunacy appears in 13th century medical literature.
It is a term derived from the Latin word luna, or moon, and by 1540, lunacy had become a widely used medical term to describe a condition of psychosis whose causes were believed to be rooted in the moon's cycles.
The common term was moon sickness, and it was the acceptance of the moon's powers to affect the brain that opened the doors of plausibility for a more diabolical condition.
This disease was not just one of mind and body, but of soul, an ailment called lycanthropy.
A silly superstition? Perhaps. The outcome of radical religious beliefs and poor science? Maybe, but as we will see, a condition not without some evidentiary merit.
Because the records from this era suggest that there were beasts who stalked the dark woods and foggy streets. The archives of forensic police reports make note of various attacks that were so vicious and so brutal in nature that they could only been carried out by some horrible beast.
But by a beast whose physiology and body mechanics suggested a monster that walked upright like a man. The dichotomy of this evidence led to the conclusion that the creature must be a man possessed.
A man transformed to beast by the power of the moon.
A werewolf.
Those were, of course, different times, a time absent of the comforting rationalizations of science.
A time filled with darker nights, when only the candle's weak light stood sentry against the blackness.
A time when people filled the late-night hours with reading, writing, and midnight walks and visits.
And it was within those dark hours, and upon those midnight strolls, that another darkness walked among them.
A person who by day posed as a friendly neighbor, a helpful clerk, or perhaps even a respected doctor.
A person whose true face was only revealed in the moonlight, or upon the glint of his raised blade.
In truth, these killers did transform in the darkness, if not physically, then certainly by lifting the black veil and revealing their violent souls.
Today's researchers believe that within the annals of folklore and medical journals, the true nature of the werewolf is revealed.
A monster far more real than the mythical creature, but no less terrifying.
For in these stories lie the earliest recording of the psychopath. The longer I wore it, the more it grew on me. She had such pretty skin.
Perhaps the werewolf did shed its skin, and it was just a serial killer. Research suggests serial murderers have walked alongside us for most of recorded history.
And many, like the infamous Zodiac Killer and Jack the Ripper, their true identities were never discovered.
And according to Eric Hickey in his book, Serial Murderers and Their Victims, serial killers have been responsible for almost 4,600 murders.
The psychotic killer is the scariest of our demons, a person who wears a mask of humanity, but is the purest form of evil, an evil that at times knows us better than we know ourselves.
One of the scariest examples was a test conducted on psychopaths. The test involved the participants watching a few seconds of video. The video, nothing more than a person walking away down a hallway. The psychopaths could, from this short video, and with terrifying accuracy, identify those walkers who had been previously a victim of violent crimes.
It seems like a supernatural being or a shark Psychopaths are uniquely wired to choose their best victims.
And one of the most prevailing folklores of the 1950s deals with the psychopath in a story called The Hook.
You're stopping? Here? But this road is so dark, Frankie.
Come on, don't be a chicken. We want it dark. It's Lover's Lane.
I guess so.
Trust me, it'll be fun.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a special news bulletin. Pikes County Sheriff's Department has issued a warning to the surrounding area. William Henry Bainey, a mental patient and killer, has escaped from Ravens Point Sanitarium. Bainey is best known for the hook he wears in place of a missing right hand. If you spot anyone matching his description, do not approach and contact the Pike Sheriff's Office immediately.
Oh my God, did you hear that?
Oh, it's nothing. Ravens Point is just a bunch of drunks and depressives.
But he said he was an insane, a killer, and he has a hook.
Don't worry, sweetie. I'll keep you safe.
Did you hear that?
Oh, for heaven's sake, stop being so spooked.
I think we should go.
Fine. We'll go already.
Don't drive so fast, please.
Okay, here we are. Home sweet home.
I'm sorry, I just got really scared.
Ah, forget it. It's no big deal. Hang on, let me get your door.
What is it? What's the matter?
Look, at the rear door.
Is that a hook?
Yeah, it must have gotten caught there when I sped off.
Oh, Frankie, I hope he doesn't come looking for it.
You know, we can almost accept the existence of an evil, murderous adult, but nothing is more frightening than facing an evil child.
There is an urban legend called the Black-Eyed Children.
According to the legend, black-eyed children are paranormal creatures that resemble kids between the ages of 6 and 16. They have pale skin and black eyes and reportedly are seen hitchhiking or panhandling or are encountered on the doorsteps of residential homes.
Their evil intentions are to use their innocence to get in your car or your home, and once they have you trapped, well, we can only imagine.
Whether or not the legends are true, evil children do exist.
In 1968, when she was just 11, Mary Bell strangled and killed 2 young boys, even going so far as to carve an M into their skin.
After the death of one boy, Mary showed up asking to see him in his coffin.
Mary was tried and found guilty and sent to prison. But before we breathe a sigh of relief, just know that Mary was released under a new name in 1980.
Nurse's note. Born 7 pounds 10 ounces, 18 inches long, 32 fully formed teeth. Silent, always smiling.
But these are all tales of old, right? Just superstitions and folklore?
Perhaps, but what about the more recent cases?
If psychopathic serial killers are real, then is it possible their vengeful spirits can live on?
Can these evil things return to the scene of a crime to kill again? Or can a place itself be evil?
The Cecil Hotel in LA may just provide the evidence.
The hotel is known for its dark history. Elizabeth Short, a.k.a. the Black Dahlia, stayed at the Cecil before she was murdered in 1947.
Goldie Osgood, known as the Pigeon Lady of Pershing Square, was raped and murdered in her hotel room in 1964.
And Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and his copycat lived at the Cecil while they committed their crimes.
The hotel has also played host to many suicides, one of which the jumper landed on a pedestrian, killing them both.
And on February 1st, 2013, it was the final stop for Alicia Lamb. She vanished, the only clue, the haunting security footage from the elevator that she never got to take.
In the video, Lam enters the elevator and presses nearly all the buttons, but the doors remained open. She peeks out into the hallway and she exits and re-enters several times.
The footage shows her rocking in place and gesturing with her arms as if she's both frightened and communicating with someone who remains unseen by the camera.
Finally, Lam flees the elevator and disappears down the hall, the elevator doors closing behind her.
2 weeks later, Lam's body is found in the rooftop's water tank.
A simple murder or a drug-fueled accident?
According to the evidence, there was an active and functioning alarm on the rooftop door. It never sounded.
And the tank which held her lifeless body was equipped with a heavy metal latch and door that were not easily opened.
And according to the official autopsy, her naked, lifeless body revealed no signs of assault, sexual or otherwise, and other than some ibuprofen, she had taken no drugs and had taken no alcohol.
The questions remain. Why did she press all of the elevator's buttons?
Was any destination better than the floor that she was on?
And who was in the hallway that scared her so much?
But the biggest question, if it were indeed foul play, why was her body absent of injuries or any signs of a struggle?
Was it just another case of murder in the City of Angels? Was it simply the accidental death of a mentally ill young woman? And in either case, how did they reach the roof without tripping the alarm?
Perhaps the answer is more sinister. Perhaps it's that something else resides at the Cecil Hotel, something science would say is not yet explainable.
The young boy hears his mother calling him into the kitchen. As he heads down the stairs, her voice whispers from the closet, "Don't go down there, honey. I heard it too."
Evil. There's no doubt it exists, but are we the only evil in the world, or are there things living in the many unexplored places of the earth, or beyond the gates in other dimensions?
Is it all just the stuff of superstition in Hollywood, or are these locked doors in our home a false sense of safety?
Science can answer many questions, and perhaps one day it will answer the questions of evil and the supernatural.
But is it also possible that the monsters haven't changed, but the explanations have?
With so many unfound murderers, could werewolves be the right explanation for these killers in the night?
If there is a heaven, then is it possible there are forces that don't want us to reach it?
And are we just a few nights of darkness away from rethinking these things we consider irrational fears?
Thank you for listening to the Writers Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more articles, news and advice, visit our website, writersafterdark.net, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The Writers Podcast is a Writers After Dark radio production. Executive producers SK Anthony and Raymond Esposito. Copyright 2017.